I was covering the QGIS installation and I got through how to get the network installer to work and to function and how to add modules. And now I want to let's talk about some of the tutorials and things that go along with QGIS. So there's loads of tutorials. You can search YouTube, you can search QGIS tutorials, you can do anything and get excellent QGIS tutorials. I started with these tutorials back in I think 2016, and I just tried to work through as many of these tutorials as I could get through. There's more now than there used to be, but these Python scripting ones are awesome. Hydrology ones are good. Um, the GIS operations are good. So all of these are great, excellent tutorials, and they're free. But you can also take some live classes with this author. So go ahead and go ahead and check this site out. There's also, let me pause the video real quick and I'll get you the next set. Okay, they're also Geospatial School. He's another guy. Again, this guy he posts his videos on YouTube, so he has all kinds of free training on YouTube, and then he has these paid lessons that you can use. I highly recommend this one called QGIS Python Development because he gives you all the tools you need to set up your your computer so that your paths and everything are corrected, and so that when you run your Python programs and tests and everything, it doesn't fail because your Python path is, and you don't have to go and add all these paths to your system environmental variables and things. So he does everything like inside his development tools. So definitely recommend this particular class, and then he has all kinds of free classes online. And then of course there are my tutorials, which are in documentation.flow-2d.com. So for the 1.15 tools, they're here in documentation. And then for the 1.0.0, the plugin 1.0, which we're going to call Flow2D plugin, the Flow2D Gila plugin, we're going with rivers. We're going to put these here in my playlist videos, and I'm going to publish these as soon as we release the plugin. Okay, now what's next? Okay, let's go to more resources. One more thing I wanted to talk to you about, and that is ChatGPT. So this is just chatgpt.com. It's one of the free 3.5 versions of ChatGPT, and I put in a couple of different queries and asked for a few things. Okay, so the first one was, can you make a unit table in RST format with imperial and metric for discharge, velocity, depth, area, elevation? And then I added a few more commands when I was originally doing this because I needed time and things like that. And this is what ChatGPT gives me. I wanted to build this table for our storm drain model because our storm drain model does not use gallons per minute. You know, it uses cubic feet per second, cubic meters per second, and then it uses velocities are in feet per second, and its areas are in square feet. So we don't do inches and things like that in our storm drain model. And then I asked ChatGPT to build me this table in this RST format because that's how I do my documentation. I do RST to HTML, and it builds this nice table for me. So that was one of the things I wanted to show you. And then ChatGPT can do a few other things too. I asked it, how do I convert an elevation raster from meters to feet in QGIS? And it gives me these explicit instructions that are the exact correct instructions that we'll be seeing in the second video or the third video in this playlist. Okay, it talks about like raster conversions. The next question that I asked, oh, and by the way, it gives you like multiple examples on how to do things. The next thing I asked ChatGPT was, can SQLite, can you write a command? This is just telling it what code I want that command in. Can you write a command to remove a table called metadata? And then I saw Robson doing this the other day because he dropped a table from our geo package and then he reloaded the project in QGIS, and then that forced QGIS to rebuild the geo package. And so I wanted to remember that command, and so I couldn't remember it, so then I asked ChatGPT and it told me the command. Okay, so then you can do another thing like vacuum. You know, there's all these excellent commands in for SQLite that you can do to clean up your your table with, your geopackage table. All right, the next thing I did was how do I connect QGIS to 3D EP elevation data from USGS? And I'm not exactly happy with this lesson or with this response because this is not the correct, I don't think anyway that this is the correct code for this. I have the correct code on QGIS. So let's just see what this one says compared to the one I'm using. So I'm using let's see, edit, this one right here. So I'm going to pause or just leave my video here for a second. You can pause this and get this code for 3D EP. And again, we'll go into a different lesson for that, but I'm going to say copy, and I'm going to tell ChatGPT that the correct code for that, or let's see, the correct code for the 3D EP elevation connection, or the correct link for the 3D EP elevation connection for WCS is this. And then it will update its memory. It'll update its memory. And then I asked it a couple of more questions just to show you. But then I wanted to show you what I use ChatGPT mostly. The most successful things that I've done with ChatGPT is I have built Python script and command prompt script. And I have these script files, let's see, here. And ChatGPT has helped me build all of these scripts that do different things. Well, not these two. I got these two from that class that I took. I learned how to build those two, and I'm not going to open them because then then he doesn't make any money off his class. So you can open the rest of these though in Notepad++ and see how they're set up. And these scripts are available on, if you log into your Flow2D update folder, all of these scripts are available in a folder called scripts. So you can get processing programs and scripts. So you can get all of these. But what I did today, just to show you, I'm not going to run any of these scripts because I don't have this stuff set up on this computer. But what I did was I loaded Python. This is your Python console. And then I click this guy right here to open this little, micro IDE. And this is just a developer that you can use to write and run scripts from. So what this does is it takes all of these .out files and it compares them in two different folders. This is your inflow folder, this is your DAT folder, and this is your HDF5 folder. And it says inflow because I was testing the results from a file that had one inflow node. So that's why that says inflow. I have one that says grid, DAT, and grid HDF5, and then what it does is it comes here, compares all these files, and then it spits out a list over here that writes which files are different. You can print all kinds of information. You can print the differences found on, like what line the differences are found on. You can print the differences, but that's ridiculous, so I don't want to do that. I just want to print the file that's different. And usually it's only like the summary.out, if I'm lucky. Okay, and then there's rasterize many, and I built this one a couple of years ago, and this one will tell you how to, well, basically it imports the output files from, multiple different runs. And when I mean multiple different runs, I mean like 10 to 20 different runs. It could be all of the runs in here. There could be like 5 to 10 different runs in here, and it's going to map all of the data that's in here. It's going to convert all the data to rasters, and it's going to load those rasters in a list called results or something like that. It's going to create a group called results, and then it's going to populate that group with those rasters, and then it's going to style those rasters with some depth styles. I don't know where the styling is. It's somewhere in here where it sets the styles to them. Oh yeah, it just sets the styles using a style file. So, and this is an excellent plugin. Again, you can get this one online. I haven't put this one online yet because I just made it a couple of days ago. Okay, so that's ChatGPT. Now, let's move on and let's look at some of the other tools that you can do, or some of the other things that you can do with QGIS. Okay, let's start with menus. Okay, project, new, that kind of stuff. Layout menus, I'm going to do in a different video. So this is pretty standard stuff. I'm not going to go over this project menu. Edit, again, not really concerned about this particular menu. It's not very useful. I don't use it. I do use this menu because if you come into here and you go to panels, you can see that if you lose one of your Flow 2D panels, you can turn it back on right here. Toolbar, same thing, but you can also right click and turn those panels and toolbars on and off. Let's see, you can do you can do quite a bit of stuff in here with different kind of zooms and controls and whatnot. So these are not bad. This is not a bad menu. I don't really use it a lot. Layer menu, I use occasionally to copy styles or copy layers. The georeferencer is a nice tool. I'm not going to show you how to use it because I always forget. So just explore it on your own. The data source manager is an excellent tool. Add a layer is an excellent tool. Let's see, settings menu. The one that I mainly use is this one right here. And mainly I set this to project settings, and then sometimes I set these, if I'm on a laptop, sometimes I set these to fit the laptop better. Another thing I do when I'm on a laptop is I use the Flow 2D help and I go to plugin features. And sorry, this image is missing. I'm working on this documentation right here. View options, and this will show you how to set up QT screen scale factor for different screen resolutions, like on laptops and things. So if your text is overflowing your windows and things like that, you need a QT screen scale factor. And you need to maybe set the some of your fonts and things to a smaller size. Okay. All right, back to QGIS. Okay, that kind of covers the menus. Let's not, oh, you know about plugins, so I'm not going to cover plugins. You know all about plugins. Vector menu, this is vector processing tools, raster processing tools. We'll go over a little bit of those later. Database manager, that needs its own video, so I'm not going to cover that. And I'm not going to cover the rest of these. They kind of need their own video. Okay, so let's go over some basic tools, okay? Pan. But if you're in the pan, you can also, if you're not in pan, if you're in any other view, you can also click the center wheel in pan. All GIS tools do that now. Zoom, zoom extent, zoom selected, that's zoom to selection. This would be zoom to layer, so if I selected the comp domain and I hit that one, it would zoom me to that. Or do the same thing, right click and zoom to layer, it'll do the same thing. This will be the back to the last zoom. This is, I don't know what that is, to be honest with you, so I'm not going to use those two, or that one. And I'm not going to bookmark anything. I don't know how to use that. Refresh is probably when you connect to something and you don't see that little refresh guy happening down there. Just click that refresh. The selection tools are pretty important. Usually they're not here. Usually they're down here somewhere. I kind of prefer them to be down here with Flow 2D. So selection tools. Let's see. Let's click on something that has multiple features so we can select them. So select features by clicking. That'll be a single selection. To unselect it, just click anywhere else. Select by an area. Oops, I didn't want those. So if I control, I can unselect them. If I control things that are unselected, I can add, or shift things that are unselected, I can add them to the selection. Okay, so let's do that again. So this is select, and I accidentally selected too many. Control will unselect them, and shift will add to the selection. Do I want to invert that selection? I come here and I invert the selection. Invert selection is super helpful. Do I want to select all features? I come here and I select all features. Do I want to deselect all features from this layer? I can do this or Control Shift A. If I want it, let's say if I want to select features from all or deselect features from all layers, it's Control Alt A. So Control Alt A. Let's try it. Control Alt A will deselect features. Select features by location, that or within a distance. These are kind of nice tools, but I don't use them very often. Let's see. Ones I use a lot are select features within an expression. So for example, let's go to fields, and I want to select all of the conduits whose length is less than 30. And I want to select those features. 65 features have a length that is less than 30. Okay? And then if I want to invert that selection, of course, I can do that. And that would be all the other features. What else? Yeah, those are pretty simple. Select features by value. That's kind of a filtering option. I don't really use that. I prefer the expression editor. All right, so that's kind of it. Let's just unselect all. And that's basically it for selecting features. Let's talk about the snapping toolbar real quick. If you have the snapping toolbar, if you can't see it, right click, go down to toolbars and go and check on the snapping toolbar. Now the snapping toolbar is super cool because when you're doing certain types of work, you need things to be snapped together. Usually it's with polygons, but also with storm drain. So let's take a look at this. If we start editing these two layers of the storm drain, I'm going to select them both. I'm going to hit the editor pencil, toggle editing. Now I'm going to set this vertex tool to all layers. And now when I hover over this line, I can edit it, right? So let's say I wanted to move my inlet to a different grid element. I can move but then I also need to move my polyline. And look, my snapping tool is turned off. So if I have to zoom in really close, right, to get that to snap to that. So that's no good. So if I turn on my snapping tool and I click snapping tool, and it'll snap right to it. But you got to be careful, okay? Because if you're on all layers, you could also accidentally snap your point to the edge of a grid, and we don't want to do that because then it can't tell which grid element to select it or to connect it to, because it's on the corner of a grid, not within a grid. So be careful about snapping things to the grid. So if you want to take the grid out of the snapping, go to Advanced Configuration, and then you can use this tool and you can filter this layer by storm drain. And then you'll see that we are only using these. Now if I filter out grid, I can uncheck grid, okay? So then that's how you can set advanced snapping options so that you don't accidentally snap things to the grid. Let me set this, yeah, and that's fine. You can keep that on that, but if you need to, just put it back to active layer or all layers or something like that. I'm going to turn it off, and I'm also going to select my two layers again, and I'm going to turn the editor pencil off. And if I wanted to keep my edits, I would click save twice. But I want to discard my edits because I don't want to make that change. I just wanted to show you that tool. So discard, discard, and that puts everything back where it was supposed to be. Okay, let's go with, so that's snapping and a little bit about editing. Let's go here and let's look at this guy here. In this guy, you can search for project layers, grid. See, I can type the word grid and it'll give me like all of the project layers. It'll give me like some of the tools, some of the processing algorithms, but like what if I just wanted grid, then it would select the layer grid. Let's look for one that's in here. Let's look for levy lines. Let's try it again and let's do levy lines. So levy lines, and let's select it and see it goes and opens it and finds it. Okay. Now, one of the things that we've done with QGIS and the Flow2D plugin recently is we have hidden a bunch of our layers that we don't typically use. So if you want to see those layers, you need to go to Flow2D settings, check advanced layers, and click OK so you can see those hidden layers. They're still there, we've just hidden them. And if you want to turn those back off because, you know, that's a lot, just go back and do that again and it'll turn them back off, okay? Let's see what else. Okay, so that's this guy. This is just such an excellent little tool here. Just don't forget that it's here, and it can find all kinds of stuff for you. It can go to coordinates. It can do all kinds of stuff for you. Let's get out of here. Now, what about the browser? I don't, you know, in past years I haven't really used the browser, so I've just closed it, but it's actually like seems to me that it's put this project home in here and it's a lot better. So if you do want to use this browser, you can come in here and you can like quickly pop like an elevation layer onto your map, onto your layers list, and then you see here that your elevation layer is right here. Let's put it in here with our other elevation layers. Okay, and then we'll minimize it. I like to collapse. Don't ever click that one if you're working on a Flow2D project, but I like to collapse all because it really helps you kind of get quickly close all the data so that you can just open up what you need and find something. So that's a sweet tool. The show all layers, hide all layers. These can be kind of helpful if you're just keep losing something. That can be helpful. This filtering tool is not. I don't particularly find it very useful. So, but you might add a group. If you're going to add a group, make sure you're not on a group. So I don't like to use the add a group tool. I like to come down here and right click and add a group like that. And then to remove a group, right click R to remove a group. The browser tool is also cool because it can like connect you to your geo package. So if you're in here on your geo package, you can right click and you can like do some management with this geo package tool. You can run the vacuum on it. You can execute a SQL. Like I showed you before, you can execute a SQL where you drop a table. And then that table was called metadata. And if I ran that, if I executed that, it would just delete the table from this geo package. So that's a really useful, but you know, you can ruin your geo packages with this tool. So be careful with it. You know how to use it and make a backup before you start to try and mess with it. Let's see. Another thing that we can do here is, well, I'm going to skip out of here and I'm going to go to a different connector. Let's see. What should we do now? We talked about the layers list. We talked about, let's try a few more of these. How about these guys up here? So the info tool. So if you click on an info tool and you're on a layer and then you click that layer, it's going to give you the idea of or it's going to give you some information about that layer. But usually it's also going to give you a bunch of other stuff that you don't need to know. So be careful. You need to maybe have this set to auto or to extend new results by default. Sometimes you want to collapse the results because there's too many and then you just expand them yourself. And then again, I don't typically like this tool. So I usually put it on this one, and I usually set it to hide derived attributes, and hide null values is another good one. And then I also like to dock the identify results panel with the Flow2D panel, the processing toolbox, the Flow2D panel, the processing toolbox, the identify. I like to keep them in the same group. And then once you're down here on the bottom of identify results, you can set this to current layer, or you can do layer selection. But one of the things that's cool about this, like say for example, you wanted to identify stuff from two different layers, you just select both of those layers and then you use the identity tool, and it's going to give you all of the attribute values from the grid layer and all the attribute values from the comp domain layer. And then it, like, one of the things I don't like about the identity tool is that if you leave it on the identity tool and you accidentally click something, it could just sit there and take forever to process. So be a little bit careful about, like, don't set it to don't set this to top down or any or layer selection or anything like that. Set it to be careful with it, especially if you're trying to like identify something on the Google Quick Map services or something. That can really tax your computer processing. All right, let's get now to get off of this. Like, one of the problems with this tool is that it uses these rubber bands, and then as you're using it, if you don't get off of it, it won't clear that rubber band. So to clear that rubber band, you can usually just go to another tool and then, let's do that again, okay? So we'll click it and then you go to another tool and it will clear that rubber band and get that rubber band off of there. All right, let's see. So now let's get out of identify results. But another thing about identify results is if you're on it and then you try to zoom or pan or select, you can accidentally like fill this entire thing up with identify results and then get stuck in a processing loop. So be careful with that tool. Okay, there. And so see there, okay. And then I'll get off of it like that. And that clears the rubber band. I'm not going to look at the field calculator from here. I don't hardly ever use the field calculator from here, but we can look at the processing toolbox, which is a little bit overwhelming, but you can do some pretty cool things with it. So let's see. Let's try zonal statistics. So zonal statistics. Okay, so you can use the zonal statistics. Let's see. So let's grab a polygon. First of all, let's create a polygon. I'm going to build a polygon right here. And let's just do edit, create a polygon. And then I'll right click that. And I don't think we need to calculate anything. We'll just click that. So this is our fourth blocked area calculator. And what I can do is I can run zonal statistics, and because I'm on this layer, it's going to put that layer into as the input layer, or you can just drag it and drop it into the input layer. And then my raster layer might be elevation. So let's use this elevation. Let's use this one because this one is elevation from feet, and this one is our elevation that comes with our training, but it's got a lot more data. And what we're going to do is we're going to do zonal statistics from the raster. We're going to analyze the raster from within this guy. And let's see, what is our column output? I don't know what we want in there. Oh, that could be just elevation, I suppose. We won't worry about it. We'll just leave it. And then we click run. And then what you get is the statistics from within that raster. So there's 164,000 pixels inside that raster, and the mean of the pixels is 1404 elevation. Okay, that's zonal statistics. So it's going to analyze the statistics inside every single polygon. Like it'll just give you a report of the statistics of every single polygon that's in this layer. Of course, there's only one polygon in that layer because we didn't want it to take forever to run, but that's what it gives you. It's a pretty sweet tool. So we'll remove that layer, and it's a scratch layer. So as soon as I remove it, it's gone. We don't have to deal with it taking up memory. So that's zonal statistics. You can also do raster, all kinds of raster analysis. If you just type the word raster you can see all of the things that you can do with rasters. You can rasterize, you can do math, raster analysis math. You can create like contours and things like that with your rasters. You can build hill shades. You can like build hill shades or different colors. Slope analysis with these guys. And you can build contours here. So you can do all kinds of things with the rasters. You can reproject them, and then you can also pull up the Saga tools and do raster work with the Saga tools. Let's see. Let's just take that off and see. Oh, my Saga tools aren't installed. So if I go to plugins, I might be able to turn my Saga tools on. No, I might need to reinstall Saga. Well, that's okay. Not worried about it. Yeah, Saga doesn't appear to be installed right now. That's okay. So that's the toolbar. I'm not going to go into that. It's kind of its own thing. Let's just keep moving on. So this is vector statistics. And vector statistics are pretty sweet. Like, let's say we set this to grid. So I just hit the G key and it took me right to grid. And let's say I want to analyze the n value column. And you can see that there are 54,306 values. The sum is that's not important. The mean n value is 0.0288. The median 0.024. And you can get some statistics of those values. And that is a vector tool for the vector layers, okay? And so this one will do statistics on vectors and tables and things like that. Just basic statistics. And of course you can also add some different kinds of calculators and statistics right here with your expression builder. So it's great. It's a pretty sweet tool. I don't use it too often because I don't need it, but every once in a while I use it. This is the measuring tool. So let's do measure line. It always comes up to meters even if you configure it to use feet. It's kind of annoying. I don't know why it does that. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I've always configured it to use feet. And you can set the decimal places. Oh, let's maybe that. Keep the base unit. Yeah, let's just set it to feet. And then you can change the color of the rubber band to whatever you want. You guys know I love hot pink. I'm always using it as a color because it's super visible, but it's also fun to say. And then feet. And then you click here and you see that that rubber band color changed. It's usually a yellow color. And then gives you the distance along that line in feet. Okay? And then for new, and then right click to just limit it to just that single segment, right? That's just that one segment. So if you do it twice, then you right click, then you just, that's the distance between these two, and this is the distance between the second two, and this is the total distance. Area. Yeah, see, even if you use base units, it doesn't matter. You still have to change it. So, like that. Or you can do, I think that you can do like different shapes and things, maybe like circles and things like that. So, it's usually just a polygon. Okay, and then there's a few others in here. Measure bearing, measure angle. I've used measure angle a few times too. I have never used this annotation, show map tips. I've never used that. And I don't think I've used actions. Okay, so let's move on. I don't know what these guys do. I've never used those. I've used these occasionally to create a new shapefile layer. I've used these occasionally. Or a new virtual layer, but not very often. I do use the data source manager because it's a little bit, I don't know. I mean, you can do the same thing with the browser, but I use this. So let's explore elevation data. And I'm thinking I'm going to skip this and I'm going to come back to it, but to explore elevation data in another video. I'll come back and do that in video 3. So let's explore delimited text. So you can do import. What we're going to do is we're going to connect to a file. Let's connect to the file topo.dat, right? Because we all know what that file looks like. let's first off open it in Notepad++. So topo.dat is the centroid of every grid element. Space delimited. Okay, so let's see what this data looks like when you import it. So we'll click open. Now, it did identify that we had it. Look, if I took it off of space delimited, it would just open it as rows of data. And look at this, it's trying to load a header and it's recognizing it as text. So that's not right, okay? So let's put the space back on and let's say that the first record does not have field names and we don't need to skip any lines. We do need to trim the fields, like discard empties. See, we do need to trim the fields and discard empties. We do need to do that. And it did recognize these correctly, that these are decimals, but sometimes if it's only zeros and ones in there, it might recognize it as Boolean when in fact you want it to be an integer, okay? So be careful about that. This data is not just geometry. This data does have geometry because these are points. So let's say that these are point coordinates and that the X field is field 1 and the Y field is field 2 and the Z field is field 3. And the projection needs to go to 2223. Now if I click add, that is going to add that data to our map. Now of course if you did that and there were millions of points in here, that would be a problem. That would take forever. So don't do that. You know, you have different ways of analyzing point data. You don't have to load it into your map. But now that we've got it in here, that's how you add delimited text, and then you could join it to your grid or you could join it to other things. You could do spatial joins with it, table joins with it, that kind of thing. So it does help. So I'm going to remove it. Just wanted to show you how to load it. So let's just click remove and OK. And let's see. What else did we want to show you? Okay, that's the delimited text data. I'm not going to tell you any more of these until we get to the other video. So that's enough for this video. And I know there's videos out there that show you how to use the mesh tools, so I'm not going to go over those either. Okay, so I think we've gone over enough tools. That's just kind of just general GIS tools. So let's shut this video down and let's move on to the next video, which will be how to connect to online data. So I'm going to click stop recording here, and the next video will pick up this at where we left off for online data.